After my girlfriend and I had another argument, she responded by changing the password to our front door, effectively locking me out of the life we had built together. The only explanation she offered was a single, cold text message that appeared on my phone screen. "Think long and hard about what you did." I stood on the pavement outside our home, watching as the evening streetlights began to flicker to life, casting long shadows down the quiet street. Despite the hours that passed, I remained completely baffled, unable to pinpoint the specific transgression that had warranted this punishment. My girlfriend Clara had always been this way, her temper flaring up without any discernible cause. She possessed a peculiar and often frustrating method of expressing her affection, one that was frequently wrapped in layers of anger. For years I had convinced myself that all it required was a bit more patience on my part, a gentle and persistent effort to coax her out of these moods. But standing there, on the cold concrete, a profound sense of exhaustion washed over me. This time felt different. I was simply too tired to play the game anymore. The desire to coax her, to plead and guess my way back into her good graces had evaporated. My mind drifted back to a recent, similar incident. I had walked into my home office to discover my latest design mock-ups, the product of 2 sleepless nights of intense work against a looming deadline, strewn across the floor in a chaotic mess. Clara was standing in the very center of the destruction, her arms crossed and her eyes blazing with a resentful fire as she stared me down. It had taken her less than 2 minutes to undo the 48 hours of labor I had poured into that project. I took a slow, deep breath, trying to steady my own rising anger, and knelt to begin gathering the pieces of paper she had systematically torn to shreds. The only sound in the suffocatingly quiet room was the soft, crisp rustle of the ruined documents as I picked them up. The air itself felt heavy, thick with an unspoken tension that was almost palpable. Finally, Clara broke the silence, her voice sharp with accusation. "All you ever care about are your stupid mock-ups." It was only then that I noticed her hand. A large, angry blister had formed on her index finger, likely from the repetitive motion of ripping through the thick cardstock of my designs. It had popped, and a thin mixture of blood and clear fluid was now oozing from the raw skin. She glared at me, making no move to tend to the injury, her expression a mask of defiance. In the end, as was so often the case, I was the one who relented. I went to the bathroom, retrieved the first aid kit from under the sink, and returned to treat her wound. As I carefully cleaned the blister and wrapped a bandage around her finger, she began her lecture. "Is your work really more important than your health? You know you have a sensitive stomach, yet you consistently refuse to eat at the proper times." Her gaze flickered toward the small dining table, where a bowl of freshly prepared fish porridge sat, a fragrant steam still rising from its surface. Clara, a woman who had been raised in a world of luxury and had rarely set foot in a kitchen, had made that for me, and in the process had injured herself. I had been so engrossed in my work that when she brought it to me, I had merely told her to leave it, promising I would eat it later. I could never have imagined that a quick trip to the bathroom would result in the complete destruction of my project. "How many times have I told you not to sacrifice your health for your job? Adam, do you ever actually listen to a single word that I say?" Every syllable she spoke was technically laced with concern for my well-being, but her tone was as cold and sharp as ice. This was her pattern, her signature move, doing things that were ostensibly for my own good, but delivering them with such a terrible, punishing attitude that the intended kindness was lost. I glanced from the pile of shredded designs on the floor to the steaming bowl of porridge on the table, a tangible representation of our dysfunctional dynamic. I let out a long, weary sigh. I would let it go, just this once. We had been together for almost 5 years, and the thought of throwing away all that history was unbearable. If it happened again, I promised myself, that would be the end. I never expected that again would arrive so soon. On the evening of our 5th anniversary, I came home carrying a small, elegant cake, only to find myself standing on the wrong side of a locked door. I had forgotten my keys inside, and after 3 attempts, it became clear the password had been changed. I called Clara's number. It rang and rang, finally going to voicemail. 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed with an incoming call from her. When I answered, all I heard was that same, chillingly familiar line. "Think long and hard about what you did." I stood outside our home until night had fully descended, the streetlights casting their lonely orange glow on the pavement. But I was no closer to understanding what I had done to upset her this time. Eventually, Clara called back. "Have you figured it out yet? What you did wrong?" Her voice was devoid of warmth. I didn't answer, my own frustration and exhaustion rendering me silent. Her tone turned frosty. "Then I guess you can just stay out there." But unlike all the other times, I didn't push or plead for a reason. I didn't beg for an explanation. I simply said, "Okay." I walked to the nearest public trash can and dropped the anniversary cake inside. Guided by the dim streetlights, I started walking, each step taking me further away from the place I had considered my home for the last 5 years. I found a hotel and checked in for the night. Around 2 in the morning, I woke up and instinctively checked my phone. There were no new messages, not a single missed call from Clara. She was an incredibly proud person, and I knew she would never be the one to apologize first. She was incapable of expressing her concern for me in a direct, straightforward way. Her true feelings were always kept under lock and key, buried beneath layers of pride and anger. I was always left to guess, to piece together clues just to get a small glimpse of what was actually on her mind. I could never understand why she couldn't just show her affection openly. A friend once tried to explain it to me, saying, "Clara's just one of those proud types who acts tough. All you have to do is sweet-talk her a little, and the whole thing will blow over." But I was too tired for that now. I didn't want to be the one to back down anymore. I didn't want to coax her. So I opened a new message, typed 2 simple words, and pressed send. "We're breaking up." Ending our relationship for good felt like the only possible resolution for us. The next morning, when I arrived at the office, my boss, Mark, noticed immediately that I was alone. "Why didn't Clara drive you today? Did you two have a fight?" Mark was a good friend of Clara's and also my direct supervisor. He had watched our entire relationship unfold over the years, so he could spot trouble from a mile away. He tried to reason with me, to smooth things over. "You know how Clara is. She acts all nonchalant and tough on the outside, but deep down she cares more than anything." I knew that everything he was saying was true. I had known she was like that from the very first time I met her. I was attending an industry conference with a senior colleague who happened to be a good friend of Clara's family. He had offered Clara a ride since she was headed to the same event. As she was getting into the car, she lost her balance and stumbled, falling right into me. Before I could even ask if she was okay, she began scolding me, a preemptive strike. But I noticed the tips of her ears were bright red. I decided to tease her a little. "So, how do you want to handle this? Should I offer myself in return?" Clara's entire face went crimson. She immediately adopted a high and mighty posture. "Plenty of people are into me. You won't get a chance in this lifetime. Maybe you can try in the next." After she said it, she unconsciously pursed her lips, her eyes meeting mine for just a second before darting away. I just smiled, not thinking much of it at the time. Before we got out of the car, Clara held her phone out in my direction. I looked at her, confused. She turned her head away, refusing to meet my gaze. "Give me your number. Since you guys gave me a ride today, I should get in touch to return the favor when I have some time. My colleague shot me a subtle wink, and I instantly understood. Given his close friendship with her family, there was absolutely no reason for Clara to go through me to return a favor. She clearly just wanted my number and had concocted a clumsy excuse to get it. I knew, even back then, that she was awkward and never said what she truly meant. It didn't seem like a huge flaw at the time. I thought I could accept it. That was until our first major fight after we started dating. I had just finished a massive project, and we had made plans to go out and celebrate. I waited all day, but she never showed up. She didn't answer my calls or reply to any of my texts. I was on the verge of calling the police to file a missing person report when she finally appeared. Her face a cold, unreadable mask, and she refused to say a word. I eventually found out from a mutual friend that she was upset because I hadn't worn the watch she had given me as a gift when I left the house that morning. She had spent a long time picking it out, and the fact that I had accepted it but hadn't immediately worn it made her feel as though I had dismissed her feelings and didn't really care about her. So she had decided to sulk and go completely off the grid. But she could have just told me that directly, instead of making me guess and worry for an entire day. I can't read minds. I can't be expected to perfectly decipher her mixed signals every single time. On another occasion, I came home from work completely exhausted and fell asleep on the couch. I opened my eyes in the middle of the night to find Clara sitting beside me in the dark. Her voice was flat and devoid of emotion. "Since you're so busy with work all the time, we might as well just cancel our trip." Work had been piling up, and I was constantly working overtime. I wasn't entirely sure if I could finish everything before our planned vacation date. So, without thinking too much about it, I agreed with her. I never expected her to shoot me a look of pure hatred, jump up from her seat, and slam the bedroom door on her way out. The moment the loud bang echoed through the apartment, I realized she had meant the exact opposite of what she said. She had been looking forward to that trip for months, so why couldn't she just communicate with me directly? Exhausted, both mentally and physically, for the first time, I felt a deep and profound sense of disappointment in Clara. I pushed those negative memories down. During my lunch break, I called a locksmith. Clara would never give me the new password to the house, but all of my personal belongings were still there, and I needed to get them back. The moment the locksmith got the door open, I saw Clara sitting on the living room sofa. Her expression so dark, it looked like it was about to drip ink. The locksmith looked from her to me, a confused expression on his face. I quickly transferred him the money for his services, and he left. I walked straight past her, heading toward the bedroom on the second floor. "Adam," Clara called out to me, "you just let a complete stranger into our home? Is this how you treat what you call our home?" The year I graduated from college, my parents died in a car accident. For a long time after that, I was completely alone in the world. Sometimes I would see a family of 3 walking down the street, and a sharp pang of envy would hit me, an endless melancholy rising in my heart. After Clara and I got together, we squeezed into a small rental apartment for a while, until her tech startup took off and she bought this house. I remember the day she placed the key in my hand and promised, "You said you wanted a home, didn't you? I'm giving you one." It was one of the rare times she expressed her feelings so directly and openly. I cherished that memory, and I had always considered this place a home that belonged exclusively to the 2 of us. I had always imagined that if our relationship ever fell apart, Clara would be the one to leave without a second thought. I never expected that I would be the one to go first. Clara's accusations continued. "What is your problem? You're the one who did something wrong." I cut her off. "It doesn't matter anymore. We already broke up." Clara froze, standing there in a daze. I walked around her and went upstairs to pack my things. The entire house was filled with memories of her. We had snuggled on that sofa watching movies, we had used matching couples' mugs in the bathroom, and we had watched fireworks from the balcony. I remembered the moment the night sky had lit up with brilliant colors. She had wrapped her arms around my waist and kissed me passionately. But I don't know when it started, but now, whenever I opened the front door, all I felt was a suffocating pressure. Clara seemed to have forgotten her promise about this being our home. After every argument we had, she would retreat to her office and stay there. She wouldn't come home until I had apologized. In the past, I had said, "I'm sorry," to her countless times. I never wanted to say it again. When I came downstairs with my suitcase, Clara was still standing in the exact same spot. I was planning to just ignore her and leave, but as I passed by, she reached out and grabbed my hand. "Take back what you just said. No," I replied. A vein throbbed on Clara's temple as she struggled to suppress her anger. "Fine, then let's break up. And don't you ever come looking for me again." She pulled out her phone, blocked my number right in front of me, and then pointed toward the door. "Get out!" "Adam, what's wrong with you?" A new colleague, a recent college graduate, asked with genuine concern in his voice when he saw the expression on my face later that day. I shook my head to show him I was fine, and continued explaining the project workflow to him. Mark suddenly rushed over, pulled the new guy away to do something else, and then whispered to me, "Are you crazy talking to him? You're not afraid of Clara getting jealous?" I had no idea what he was talking about. Mark explained that on our anniversary, Clara had planned to pick me up from work early, but when she arrived, she saw me laughing and talking with the new colleague. She got angry and drove home by herself. So that was why she had locked me out. "You really need to wise up," Mark sighed. "Stop making her angry." "We broke up," I said flatly. Mark stared at me, and after confirming that I wasn't joking, he said in shock, "For real? Don't do that. Clara cares about you a lot. Believe it or not, that girl is probably crying in a corner somewhere right now." As if afraid I wouldn't believe him, Mark immediately called Clara. She picked up right away. "Hello?" It was just one word, but her voice was filled with a hoarseness and despair that I recognized. I had heard that voice countless times. I remembered it as being cool and magnetic, the end of her sentences always carrying a hint of pride. It had never sounded so utterly defeated. Mark shot me a meaningful look and said into the phone, "Adam is right here next to me. If you have anything to say, you should talk to him now." As soon as she knew I was there, Clara's tone shifted instantly. "I have nothing to say to him. I'm hanging up." Mark looked completely embarrassed. Maybe because I had always been so accommodating in the past, Clara didn't take my threat of a breakup seriously. After all, those two words carried an immense weight. I had never dared to say them lightly, because I understood that once they were spoken, there was no turning back. It also meant that I truly, genuinely wanted to be done with her. As quitting time approached, the office suddenly got lively. I overheard a colleague say, "Did you guys see her? The woman in the boss's office is gorgeous, prettier than a movie star." "I heard she's a friend of the boss. I'm going to ask him for her contact info later." "So lame. Why don't you just ask her yourself?" As Derek said this, he leaned in toward me. "Hey, Adam, you were out with a client earlier, so you missed her. I secretly took a picture for you to feast your eyes on." Derek handed me his phone. Sure enough, it was Clara. In the past, Clara had never gotten out of the car when she dropped me off at work. My colleagues knew I had a girlfriend, but they had no idea what she looked like. Suddenly, the office door opened from the inside, and Clara walked out, heading toward the restroom. Her eyes lit up for a moment when she saw me sitting at my desk. I kept my focus on my work and didn't look her way. Clara's expression visibly darkened. She let out a cold huff and strode past my desk without a second glance. The discussion among my colleagues continued. "But I feel like beautiful women often have some kind of personality flaw. A goddess like that is best admired from a distance. Don't get too close." "You're such a coward. With a face like that, I could put up with anything. Just watch how I win her over." Derek was a man of his word. He bought coffee for the entire office, and he delivered Clara's cup to her personally. I watched from my desk as Clara graciously accepted it and thanked him with a warm smile. One thing led to another, and soon they had exchanged contact information. During their chat, Clara even shot a pointed look in my direction. It was as if she was saying, "You don't know how to appreciate me, but there are better men who will." For a solid week, Clara came to the office every single day. At first, she would glance at me defiantly, but eventually her gaze no longer lingered on me for even a second. Instead, she and Derek grew closer and closer. My colleagues were all saying they would be a couple soon. Mark pulled me aside. "How can you just sit there and do nothing? If you don't make a move, Clara is really going to end up with someone else." I asked Mark, "She's the one flirting with other people. Why don't you go talk to her?" Mark said, "You know how stubborn she is. She won't listen to anyone. You two were together for so many years. It's a shame to just let it all go." After my best friend learned about my dynamic with Clara, he once pulled me aside for an all-night talk. He patiently analyzed my situation, subtly and not so subtly advising me to leave her. But Clara's friends had the complete opposite attitude. After every fight, they would push us to reconcile. It took me a long time to realize that as outsiders, they could clearly see who was the one always giving in and who was the one benefiting from the relationship. I just saw it too late, which is why the breakup ended up being so messy for me. A sudden cheer from across the office broke my train of thought. I followed the sound and saw that Clara had given Derek a watch. Derek looked embarrassed. "It was just a cup of coffee. You didn't have to do this." Clara smiled warmly. "I really liked the flavor, so this is a special thank you. Please accept it." A hint of romantic tension hung in the air. I heard someone in the crowd murmur, "How romantic." Clara was indeed a romantic person. She would remember every holiday and always plan something special. Last Valentine's Day, she had booked a table at the Hilton with a perfect view, inviting me to watch the beach light show. As the golden lights danced and shimmered across the water, Clara placed a huge bouquet of vibrant red roses in my arms, and I put the necklace I had bought for her around her neck. A passing tourist captured the moment on video and posted it online. People in the comments gushed, calling us a perfect couple. But the mood at that moment hadn't been good at all. Clara had been furious, constantly berating me. "This is hideous. I've never seen a necklace so ugly. You're dragging down my taste level. Adam, don't you ever try to be clever and buy me gifts again." Hearing her say that had genuinely hurt me. I had spent ages picking out that necklace, even consulting with several industry experts before buying it. But if Clara didn't like it, all my effort was meaningless. Later, Mark told me that the truth wasn't what it seemed. Clara was a rich girl, born with a silver spoon in her mouth. To her, I was just an ordinary guy. She didn't want to see me working myself to the bone, taking on extra shifts just to buy her expensive gifts. That's why she had used such harsh words to put me down. But now, watching her speak so gently to Derek, a belated wave of bitterness washed over me. So she did know how to say thank you for a gift. She wasn't only capable of hurling insults. She was capable of offering positive emotional support. She just wasn't willing to do it for me. I could no longer tell which of her consistently harsh attitudes were her being stubborn for my own good, and which were just genuine contempt. Her love was always hidden beneath an iceberg. When I reached out for an embrace, all I ever felt was a bone-chilling cold. I pulled my gaze away and turned to leave. Behind me, a colleague mentioned that Derek was planning to confess his feelings to Clara that day. But after work, I was stopped by an enraged Derek. He slapped me hard across the face and yelled, "Clara is your girlfriend. Why didn't you say anything? You were enjoying watching me make a fool of myself, weren't you? After I looked out for you so much, this is how you repay me? By backstabbing me? You two are sickos. I feel disgusted just looking at you." Derek was making a huge scene. Passers-by stared and whispered among themselves. My left cheek stinging, I stared intently at Clara as she walked toward me. "Is this what you wanted?" I asked her. Clara turned her head away, her tone as arrogant as ever. "It's your own fault for doing something wrong and refusing to apologize." A profound sense of powerlessness washed over me. I didn't want to deal with her anymore, and I quickly walked away. Clara chased after me and grabbed my hand. "You're going the wrong way. That's not the way home." She had probably been staying at her office these past few days, and had no idea that I hadn't been back to our so-called home at all. I shook her hand off, my voice more serious than it had ever been. "Clara, we're not together anymore. Stop bothering me." A flicker of helplessness crossed Clara's eyes. While she was stunned, I opened my car door, got in, rolled up the window, and sped away. In the rearview mirror, her figure grew smaller and smaller until it disappeared completely. I requested my annual leave from the company and booked a flight to my hometown. Before I left, I received an unexpected call. The person on the other end said, "Do you have some time? Let's talk." At the coffee shop, Ethan sat across from me. He was Clara's older brother. When Clara and I first got together, her family didn't like me at all and insisted that she break up with me. Clara refused, and in a fit of anger, she cut ties with her entire family. For all these years, Ethan was the only one she kept in touch with, because he, the brother who had watched her grow up, was the only one who supported our relationship. "Did you know that Clara has been drinking until late every single night?" Ethan frowned, his tone full of disapproval. "She said you want to break up with her. Adam, Clara gave up her own parents for you. How could you just abandon her? Do I really need to tell you how much she loves you?" I knew perfectly well that Clara loved me, just as much as I loved her. But her love for me was hermetically sealed, never allowed to leak out. My love for her, however, was always on full display, with nothing to hide. It was so unfair. I never understood why Clara had developed such a personality. Then Ethan said, "Clara had a boyfriend in college. He was her first love. When you're young, you don't know how to hold back your affection. She would cling to him, sending him 10 cheesy text messages a minute without thinking it was too much. Eventually, her intensity became a burden for the guy, and they broke up. Ever since then, she's been like this. She just doesn't know how to express love. It's either all or nothing. Adam, you should give her more chances." Ethan said it as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. Hadn't I given Clara enough chances? Why should I have to bear the burden of her unresolved issues from a past relationship? My affection for her had long been worn down to nothing by her endless cold words and mind games. I never wanted to have anything to do with her again. My hometown is a small coastal city. The moment I stepped off the plane, I could smell the familiar, salty air carried on the sea breeze. After returning to my childhood home, I spent the afternoon cleaning it up and then fell onto the bed for a good, long sleep. That night, my dreams were free of all the chaos and drama, and I slept more deeply than I had in ages. The next day, Clara called. "Adam, where did you run off to?" I was placing the lilies I had just bought into a vase and answered nonchalantly, "What's it to you? Clara, let me remind you, you're not my girlfriend anymore." There was a long silence on the other end of the line before she finally spoke again. "I'm not calling to make up with you. You still have a bunch of stuff at my place that you didn't take with you. It's taking up space, and it's annoying to look at. I'm tired of seeing it. Find some time to come and get it." I had no desire to ever set foot in that place again, so I said, "Just throw it all away." "Throw it all away?" A hint of panic entered Clara's voice. "The commemorative medals with our names engraved on them, the anniversary photo album you made, and all the hand-painted postcards I sent you. You don't want any of it." "That's right. I don't want any of it. I thought for a moment, then added, "The garbage truck comes by at 4 p.m. If you throw it out now, it'll be gone in no time." Clara gritted her teeth. "Fine. I'll make sure it's all thrown out. Don't you regret this?" "Clara?" I interrupted her. "Do you always have to talk to me like this?" Through the phone, I could hear her breathing suddenly become ragged. But I had to keep going. "Honestly, I've been sick of your attitude for a long time. I've wanted to break up with you for a long time. You got screwed over by your first love? Go deal with him. Why did you dump all of your issues on me? What am I, some kind of trash can for your emotional baggage? I've had enough. If you have any decency left, let's just go our separate ways." I hung up the phone decisively. After that, Clara didn't call me again. I was happy for the peace and quiet. After lying around at home for 3 full days, I finally decided to go out. As I stood across the street from a row of small shops, trying to decide which restaurant to go to for lunch, a familiar, crisp, and pleasant voice sounded from behind me. "Adam?" Inside the Chinese restaurant, Sarah was peeling shrimp for me. "When did you get back? Why didn't you contact me? How could I have faced her? Sarah and I grew up in the same neighborhood. We were close since we were kids, and she was like a sister to me, always looking out for me. After my parents passed away, I fell into a long depression and wasn't in a good mental state. Worried that something would happen to me, Sarah came to my house every single day to cook for me and take me out to clear my head. In my memory, she was always thoughtful and gentle-tempered. The only time she ever got angry with me was when I worked myself into a stomach hemorrhage trying to win over Clara's parents." Sarah's eyes had turned red with anger and concern. "Is she really that great? Is she worth you ruining your health like this?" At the time, I had firmly told her that Clara was worth any sacrifice. Perhaps seeing that I was a lost cause, Sarah said nothing more and left quietly. Shortly after that, she was transferred to an overseas branch of her company and was gone for many years. I hadn't seen her since. I never expected her to be back in our hometown, too. Even though it had been a long time, Sarah was still the same as before, able to see right through me. She said, "Did you fight with Clara?" I shook my head. "We broke up." I don't know why, but when Clara's attitude used to hurt me, I would just think to myself, endure it, and it will pass. But seeing Sarah again after so long and thinking about the past, I suddenly felt a surge of grievance. I couldn't help but say, "Sarah, I'm heartbroken." She was stunned for a moment, then sighed helplessly. "I know. I'll go buy some fireworks later." When I was a kid, I loved setting off fireworks. Whenever I was in a bad mood, Sarah would buy a few and take me to the cliffs by the sea to let them off. It was a habit that stayed with me into adulthood. I suddenly remembered that Clara had once promised to come back to my hometown with me to set off fireworks, but it kept getting postponed for one reason or another and never happened. And now, there would never be another chance. "What are you thinking about?" Sarah's voice brought me back to reality. I realized I had been holding a piece of food with my chopsticks, frozen in place, and oil had dripped onto my collar. Sarah took a napkin and gently wiped it for me. A faint, elegant fragrance entered my senses as she leaned closer. For a moment, I was flustered, frozen in place, my cheeks growing warm. Just as I was about to thank her, an ice-cold voice cut through the air. "What do you two think you're doing?" Clara stood at the entrance of the restaurant, her face contorted with rage, her eyes fixed on me. "Adam, I thought you came back to your hometown to clear your head. It turns out you were cheating on me with another woman." "Shut up." Sarah was angry now, too. "Don't you dare slander Adam. He didn't do anything wrong." Clara turned to her, her eyes filled with disdain. "Who do you think you are, even daring to speak about my boyfriend?" I stopped Sarah as she was about to rush forward and said to Clara, "Whatever it is, let's take it outside. Don't make a scene in here." Clara's gaze fell on my hand, which was blocking Sarah. She shot Sarah a triumphant, provocative smirk, and then turned and walked out. Sarah was worried. "I'm coming with you." I shook my head, signaling that I could handle it. Clara had driven here. She opened her trunk. The commemorative medals, the photo album, the postcards, all the things she had said she would throw away on the phone, she had brought them all with her, placing them in my hands one by one. That day I gathered all your things. I went through them one by one and realized just how many memories we've made over these 5 years. I couldn't bear to throw them away. Please, you keep them all, okay? I also brought fireworks. Didn't you used to say you wanted to set them off with me in the place where you grew up? How about tonight? You haven't been back home in a long time, and work isn't busy for me right now. I can stay and keep you company. I watched her quietly and let out a long sigh. Clara, you could have just apologized. Her eyes immediately reddened. She lowered her head, and after a long moment she said, "I'm sorry." The apology was like a long overdue rain, unable to moisten soil that had long since dried and cracked. But at least it gave some kind of closure to the me of the past 5 years. I nodded and turned to leave. Clara frantically grabbed my hand. A hot tear fell onto my palm. "Please, let's not break up. All the things you don't like about me, I'll change them. Just don't leave me." Now, finally, when she realized all her old tricks were useless and that I wasn't coming back, she was finally willing to be the first to yield. I took a half step back and spoke wearily. "Let it go, Clara. I gave you too many chances, but you never valued them. Because you knew I would always back down and tolerate it, you took my love for granted, using it as a banner to hide all of your terrible behavior. That's not being guarded, Clara. You're just selfish." Her face went pale, and she vehemently denied it. "No, it's not like that. I cut off my family for you, Adam. You're all I have. You can't leave me." Clara clung to my hand like it was her last lifeline. But she was the one who hadn't given it her all back then. "Did you ever try to convince your parents? Did you ever fight for me?" I looked at her tears, unmoved. "You did none of that. Even after I became a top designer in the industry, you never said a single good word about me to them. She always said she had betrayed her parents for me, but that was just a way to deepen my guilt and keep me tethered to her side. The truth was, her parents would take her back any time she wanted. Otherwise, they wouldn't have let Ethan stay in contact with her all these years." I pried her fingers off my hand one by one. "Stop this. We're done." Clara left. She had initially postured as if she was going to dig in her heels and stay by my side, but a call came from Ethan saying their father was seriously ill in the hospital, and she had to go back. Sometimes I really envied Clara. No matter what, whenever she wanted. She had a home to go back to, and I was all alone. She said she only had me, but in reality, it was the other way around. I only had her. On my first day back at work after my leave, Derek found me. He looked apologetic. "I'm sorry about the other day. Mark told me later that you and Clara had already broken up. I misunderstood." I told him not to worry about it. Based on Clara's reaction that day, I could guess that she had intentionally blurred the truth to set Derek up, all to make me jealous. Derek felt bad and treated me to a big dinner. After learning what Clara was really like, his face showed disdain, and he warned me, "Don't go soft on a woman who won't let go after a breakup. You can't give in." Of course I wouldn't. She had lost the right to make me feel soft-hearted. To make my commute easier, I rented an apartment near the office. Coincidentally, Sarah lived right next door. She had been transferred back to headquarters and would be living here long-term. When she had free time, she would come over and cook for me. Her cooking was just as good as I remembered. The moment the warm, comforting smell of a home-cooked meal filled the kitchen, I had a faint feeling that maybe I wasn't so alone after all. One evening after dinner, Sarah and I went out for a walk. A familiar, slightly hoarse female voice fell on my ears. "Adam." Clara stood by a lamppost not far away. The dim light cast upon her made her look haggard and thin. Ignoring Sarah's wary and hostile stance, she walked straight up to me, opened an exquisitely wrapped box, and revealed 2 rings lying inside. "This was the gift I had prepared for you on our 5th anniversary. If I had given this to you then, instead of locking you out, would things have ended differently for us?" The end of her sentence trembled, as if she were on the verge of shattering. Clara was wrong. She thought I couldn't forgive her just because of that one time she locked me out, but my disappointment wasn't like being drenched in a single downpour. It was a long, slow dampness that had seeped into me silently over the years, until one day I looked down and realized I was soaked through. Perhaps my reaction was too cold, because despair flickered in Clara's eyes. "I'm learning how to love someone. I've really changed a lot. Just give me one more chance. Just one." I shook my head. "I was willing to give in before because I loved you, but now I can't find a single shred of love for you left." Clara's head drooped in defeat, her body swaying slightly. She stepped forward and hugged me tightly, so hard it hurt a little, as if it were a final goodbye. "I'm sorry." Then she stepped back and walked out of my sight, one step at a time. After that, I didn't see Clara for a long time. She just vanished from my life without a sound. Until one weekend afternoon, I had a craving for dessert and went out to buy some, only to have my path blocked by a Maybach. The black-tinted window rolled down, revealing a face that was both elegant and sharp. She said to me, "Mr. Evans, let's talk." I had almost forgotten the first time I met Clara's mother. I only remembered the grand hall, ostentatiously decorated with an ornate chandelier that cast a cold, sterile light. Even though Clara was holding my hand, I couldn't feel a shred of warmth. The graceful, noble lady had stood on the landing of the stairs, looking down at me, and said flatly, "Not presentable." But now, appearing before me again, much of her sharp edge was gone. Mrs. Vance took a sip of her coffee and said slowly, "Mr. Evans, I've looked over your resume. I have to admit, you're more outstanding than I initially thought. But to marry our daughter, you're still a little lacking. However, Clara's affection for you has exceeded my expectations. For her sake, I am willing to take a step back." Her condescending tone was almost laughable. I said in a low voice, "Mrs. Vance, I'm sitting here out of respect for an elder. I ask that you show me the same respect. You don't need to elevate your daughter. From start to finish, I have never considered myself beneath her. If anything, she is unworthy of my love." Mrs. Vance looked at me for 2 seconds, then suddenly smiled and said to the phone on the table, "Did you hear all that?" Clara's hoarse voice slowly came from the phone. "Yes." "If you heard it, then pull yourself together," Mrs. Vance said, her tone hardening. "The man doesn't even want you anymore. What's the use of moping around all day? Go find me the next one." I was speechless. So she had sought me out just to gauge my attitude. Was she afraid I would go back on my word and lure her daughter away again? I had to admit, the mother and daughter were quite similar in some ways. Neither of them could ever just say what they meant. Mrs. Vance put down her phone and turned back to me. "Honestly, the way you are now is far more admirable than when you were just trailing behind Clara." I accepted her compliment, but as always, it was steeped in arrogance. I treated it as a joke, something to be heard and then forgotten. My life slowly returned to normal. The only news I heard of Clara came from Mark. He said that Clara had once again refused an arranged match from her family, which made her mother so angry she had hit her. "Don't you think she might not be over someone?" he asked, not so subtly. I ignored the implication in his words, slung my bag over my shoulder, and gave him a slight smile. "Boss, it's quitting time. Don't stand in my way." It had been raining all day, and a chill hung in the air. I buttoned up my coat, not wanting to catch a cold and get another lecture from Sarah. Outside the office, Sarah was already waiting for me, holding an umbrella. Her graceful figure in the rain was like a beautiful, serene painting, attracting a lot of attention. A guy passing by walked up to ask for her number. Sarah shook her head and refused, saying there was someone she had been waiting for many years. The guy left, disappointed. She turned her head, saw me, and froze. I slipped under her umbrella and took her arm. "What are you standing there for? Let's go home." Since she had been waiting for so long, I couldn't let her wait any longer. The moment the sky cleared, she took my hand, and just as gently as when she had found me when I was lost as a child, she said, "Let's go, we're going home."